पीठरूपिणी पञ्चाशत् पीठरूपिणी मां पाहि श्रीराज राजेश्वरी 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 पञ्चाशत् पीठरूपिणी पञ्चदशाक्षरी पाण्ड्यकुमारी पञ्चदशाक्षरी पाण्ड्यकुमारी पद्मनाभ सहोदरी शङ्करी पञ्चदशाक्षरी पाण्ड्यकुमारी पद्मनाभ सहोदरी शङ्करी पञ्चाशत् पीठरूपिणी मां पाहि श्रीराज राजेश्वरी पञ्चाशत् पीठरूपिणी चित्रोपिणी देवादिनुत गुरुगुहरूपिणी देवी जगजननी चित्रोपिणी देवादिनुत गुरुगुहरूपिणी देशकाल प्रभातिनी महादेव मनोलासिनी निरञ्जनी देशकाल प्रभातिनी महादेव मनोलासिनी निरञ्जनी देवराज मुनिशाकविमोचनी देवराज मुनिशाकविमोचनी देवगान्धार रागतोषिणी देवराज मुनिशाकविमोचनी देवगान्धार रागतोषिणी भावरागताल विश्वासिनी भक्तजनप्रियवन प्रदायिनी देवराज मुनिशाकविमोचनी देवगान्धार रागतोषिणी भावरागताल विश्वासिनी भक्तजनप्रियवन प्रदायिनी पञ्चाशत् पीठरूपिणी मां पाहि श्रीराज राजेश्वरी पञ्चाशत् पीठरूपिणी
विनय जी स्वागत।
Namaskar, sir. Welcome. I welcome you all to Namami, to Namaste 2020. I was just thinking about the Namami Yoga Vidya and my mind just went away somewhere else. This has been brought to you by the Center for Soft Power with support from ICCR and also S. Vyasa University. We have come to our very last session, and we welcome Sri Vinayji Sahasrabuddhe. And I would like to start off with our Namami Yoga Vidya. Kotiji, can you please play the Namami Yoga Vidya?
विग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौली स्फुरत् तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमां मीनवक्षोरुहाम् पाणिभ्यामलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम् सततज्वर विषमज्वर ग्रह नक्षत्र दोषाञ्चान्या हर हर काली सर सर गौरी गम गम विद्ये आले माले काले बन्धे भज भज विद्ये मख मख विद्ये नाशय नाशय पापम् हर हर दुःस्वप्नं विध्वंसय विध्वंसय
Namaskar again. We have come to the last session of Namaste 2020. India's Global Connect. Looking at the population of India, we are almost 17% of the world's population. So in some way, shape or form, people have had a connect to this country and this great civilization. I'm not saying this because I'm an Indian, but I think there will be many people who will vouch for the wonderful civilization that we have here today. And to this session, I am inviting, and it has been a really wonderful thing that the ICCR has supported us in, seeing that the word has spread of this global Utsava across the globe. We have with us Sri Vinayji Sahasrabuddhe. He is the president of the Indian Council for Cultural Relationships. He is a nationalist social worker at heart, a researcher, student of politics, science, and trainer in democracy by profession and a parliamentarian by elevation. Dr. Sahasrabuddhe is a postgraduate in English literature and a PhD in political science, both from the University of Mumbai and a member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, from Maharashtra since July 2016. Dr. Sahasrabuddhe is the president of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, and India's soft power promotion establishment. Dr. Sahasrabuddhe is currently also the vice president of Rambhav Malgi Prabodhini, a unique institution of which he was the director general for over 2 decades. RMQP, which is one of its kind research and training academy for elected representatives and social workers. One of the many caps that Dr. Sahasrabuddhe wears is that of the vice president of Indian Social Responsibility Network, a Delhi-based organization. I welcome you, sir, and I would like to tell you that this video that we released for the Yoga Day this year has already had 11 lakh views in the past 2 months. So over to you, sir.
Sorry. Thank you, Vijaya Lakshmi ji, and also all those who have joined this particular very unique conference, Namaste India, from various parts of the globe, the organizers, the dignitaries present, and all other delegates who are also participating in this conference. First of all, a Namaste from India. This is a Namaste India conference, and in a way, many of us represent India, and therefore, let me start with a Namaste from India. Good evening to all of you. Basically, in the remaining some 15, 17 minutes, I will be speaking about as to how India's soft power, basically, which is a significant factor insofar as India's global connect is concerned, is a concept which is very wide, and there are several facets to it, and how various facets of this concept of India's global connect through India's soft power are relevant today, and how we can further build upon to, in a way, shape up the world of the vision of India, which is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or the world is a family. To start with, I believe that the concept of soft power is relatively new, but insofar as India is concerned, although the term may not have been in use in those days, but I believe the very discovery of India starts with India being a soft power. When earlier Columbus and later on Vasco da Gama decided to set out to locate where India is, the reason was ensuring an uninterrupted supply of Indian spices. And what are Indian spices? They are also a soft power. And therefore, I believe the very discovery of India also had something to do with the influence of India. If we go further deep into the history, India being a country which is known as a non-aggressor country also, I think, is very, very relevant when we talk about India's global connect. Yes, Indian culture and the influence of Indian culture is to be seen in various parts of the globe. And we find references in Ramayana that even countries like Kenya were referred to in a different way, of course, but we find a reference to them or to the coastal countries in Africa in Ramayana. And we also find the influence of Ramayana today as well, very much evident in countries in Southeast Asia as well. But this influence, India could spread because of the strength of its culture. It was not after having conquered those countries and having established the Indian rule in those parts of the globe that India tried to spread the influence of its culture. The culture itself was so powerful that even today, or even Brunei tell us that although we have switched to a different way of worship, our culture is the same. And that is the strength of Indian culture. And that, I believe, is one of the major factors of India's global connect. Now, coming to the soft power, I believe in the context of India, the concept of soft power is basically about 5 cardinal principles or cardinal values, which are civilizational values. And all these values are intertwined, if I may say so, with the very idea of India. What are these 5 basic things? Firstly, our idea of spiritual democracy. In India, we never say that only a particular way of worship is valid and all other ways of worship are not valid. We say, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. This is the idea of our spiritual democracy. Like in a democracy, in a political democracy, every other individual has equal respect, equal access, equal status, equal opportunities. Likewise, in India also, all ways of worship are given equal status. And therefore, India's spiritual democracy is one of the basic principles of India's soft power. The second one is the fact that the diversity of lifestyles that we come across in India essentially are the manifestations of India's unity. We say unity in diversity, but the converse is perhaps more true, which is diversity in unity. We are one, single, inseparable, and this oneness manifests through different lifestyles, through different ways of celebration, through different traditions, and therefore this diversity in unity, I think, is the second important principle when we talk about India's civilizational values, which are an important segment of India's soft power. Thirdly, it is the Gandhian philosophy of Antyodaya, where the most deprived is considered as the most preferred and most deserving. And therefore, in a way, this is India's answer to the world which is in the lookout for a third way, having frustrated by socialism and earlier having understood the limitations of capitalism as well. Fourthly, the element of harmony of human life with Mother Nature as inherent to our worldview is the fourth significant aspect of India's basic philosophical values, civilizational values. We never talk about conquering nature. We want some kind of a coexistence and therefore some samanvaya, some kind of a coordination as well when we talk about natural forces or Mother Nature. And this is also very unique and very, very relevant today when we talk about sustainability and even the development goals we describe as sustainable development goals. Lastly, the centrality of the philosophy of world as a family, which is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, I believe is also an important aspect of India's soft power. Having said that, let me now also focus upon certain contemporary features of India's global connect. What are they? Firstly, our Indian traditional knowledge systems. And there are a number of them which are a part of our traditions and our heritage as well. Firstly, it is Indian epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and their influence, which everybody understands, and as I said, is evident in several parts of the globe. At the same time, Sanskrit, as perhaps the oldest language of the world, I think is also relevant. And we know that there are several languages, not just in India, but all over the globe, which are originated from Sanskrit. Few years back, I had the occasion of visiting Tehran, the capital city of Iran. And there, ICCR had organized a seminar on commonalities between the Persian language, the Farsi language, and Sanskrit language. Why we did organize this seminar? Because Maharshi Panini is the grammarian who has come out with the linguistic structure of both these languages. And therefore, it was the government of Iran which wanted us to work more on that count, more on that front, and therefore we organized that seminar. I remember having my dialogue with the vice chancellor of the university at Tehran, who told me that even in Tehran, we teach Upanishad. And he was asking me in which Indian universities Upanishad is being taught. So this is the value of Indian traditional knowledge. Our epics, our traditional knowledge, our Sanskrit, all of these things are very, very important insofar as India's global connect is concerned. More importantly, our yoga, which is now a very prominent event in the global calendar of United Nations events. And we know that how during the last 5 years, yoga has become a universal movement. At the same time, Ayurveda also is a significant part of India's global connect. Having realized the limitations of what they call as modern medicine, which is generally known as allopathy, I think the importance of traditional medicinal systems, traditional healthcare systems, it's something which we require to revisit. And in that context, the importance of Ayurveda cannot be undermined. The second segment of India's global connect, contemporary global connect, is of course about India's art. And Indian art is rich with traditions and heritage. And we know that how, for example, Bollywood has influenced and has been instrumental in attracting several parts of the globe towards India. In many countries, whether in Southeast Asia, whether in former USSR countries, or even in Africa, and of course, Latin America and Americas, there are people who regularly watch Indian movies and also enjoy watching them. In fact, if India tries to export its movies with subtitles in all the global languages, I believe India will be able to have a greater share insofar as the global film market is concerned. Along with films, Indian classical dances and Indian classical music is also a part of India's influence over the global community. There are many who are Sangeeta sadhaks in various parts of the globe who are attracted towards nuances of Indian classical music and of course Indian dances. And therefore, India's world of arts, and there are several other factors also, other facets also. For example, India's traditional handicrafts. I mean, many of these handicrafts are on the verge of extinction. Now, if we try and make a serious attempt to influence the global market of handicrafts, I'm sure India has a bright future. Indian carpets, Indian art insofar as metal sculptures are concerned, and several other things, including wooden toys, for example. Recently, Prime Minister Modi emphasized on indigenously manufactured toys. All these things also we require to take to the global community. Even when it comes to comics, for example, I think Indian comics based on Indian stories, say, for example, from Panchatantra, we can really build upon all these kinds of things and also tap these new markets. And therefore, all these things come under Indian traditional arts. Insofar as modern things are concerned, I must attract your attention to our culinary and cuisines. I mean, anywhere on the in anywhere in the globe, in the world, if you travel and come across an Indian restaurant, I'm sure he is to tell you that he is making a brisk business over there. Indian food, it's something which attracts people from all parts of the globe. And Indian restaurants, Indian dishes are extremely popular. And on that also, I believe there is an urgent need to build further. I also would like to say that along with Indian culinary cuisines, there are some Indian sports varieties also. I mean, we know the earlier Kabaddi, for example, was not recognized internationally, but now it is. At the same time, there are other traditional Indian games also, and an attempt could be made to take them to the global community as well. Along with these things, Indian people and their traditions and their strife and their struggle is also a significant aspect of India's global connect. I would like to underscore the importance of the non-resident Indian communities. And all these communities are making a mark on the life of the countries where they are now staying. And therefore, there is a rich tradition of NRIs contributing into the development of the countries countries where they have now made their homes. And we know that in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and even in parts of Latin America, there are Indian NRI communities who have definitely made a significant mark. And insofar as global connect is concerned, I believe we cannot undermine their role. At the same time, there are certain universally recognized heroes who are sons of Bharat Mata, sons and daughters of Bharat Mata. It starts with Mahatma Gautam Buddha, and we know how Buddhism has influenced a huge population world over. And therefore, Gautam Buddha, as well as Guru Nanak, we know that the disciples of Guru Nanak Dev Ji are all over the world, and they also have made significant contributions in different countries wherever they are staying today, whether it is Canada or Australia and several other countries. So these are the two spiritual heroes in a way, which I believe India has in a way given to the world. The second aspect of Indian universal heroes are people like, say, for example, Swami Vivekananda, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. All these people as well, I believe, have contributed immensely insofar as global spiritual and thought traditions are concerned. And of course, we cannot forget the contribution of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Ji started his public life from Africa, and later on his contribution in India's independence struggle and the influence of his thoughts, influence of his philosophy, influence of his thinking, I believe is extremely relevant today. And there are several parts of the globe where Gandhian studies also has become an important aspect. And therefore, these are the universal heroes which India has produced, and they, as I said, are a significant part of India's global connect. Lastly, I would say that in view of the global connect and the need to further strengthen, I believe, first of all, we have to work towards evolving an enlightened understanding about Indian civilization and Indian culture, because for many, India becomes an enigma. We have to overcome this particular situation and make the global community understand India properly in the contemporary context. If we do that, I believe India will certainly be able to become a super soft power of the modern world. Thank you very much.
Namaskar, sir. Thank you very much. I just forgot to introduce and thank this young lady who delivered the invocation today, Soundarya. She's none other than the great granddaughter of this doyen M.S. Subbulakshmi, who took our Carnatic music to the global platform and sung at the UN. Thank you very much, Soundarya, for that invocation. I welcome Mr. Simon Unholt, Mr. Jonathan Lipman, Mr. Greg Ellis, Mr. Rutger Kortenhurst, Mr. Magnus Downer, and Srimati Lakshmi Mohan Babu to this session. They're all people from all over the world connected to India in various ways. I will allow Varsha now to introduce the first speaker for this evening.
Yeah. Namaste all. Our first speaker for today is Mr. Simon Unholt. Mr. Simon Unholt is an independent policy advisor who has worked with the heads of state and the heads of government to 56 nations to help improve their economic, political, and cultural engagements with the international community. Mr. Unholt publishes the Good Country Index, a study measuring the impact of each of 163 countries on the rest of humanity and the planet. He also published the Good Country Equation on August 11th of this year. So looking forward to your presentation, Mr. Unholt. Over to you.
I think we have a problem with bandwidth at the moment, so I've switched off my video to see if that will help. Can you tell me if you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry about this technical problem. Shall I just go ahead?
Yes, please, you can.
Okay, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for this kind invitation. I'm very honored to be part of this interesting event. In the next 9 or 10 minutes, I'd like to make some brief observations about my index, the Good Country Index, and why it exists, what it attempts to measure, and how India performs in that index. First, a little bit of background. A number of contributors in this and other panels have mentioned about the contest for soft power that is going on all over the world in the present time. Countries, of course, want to be recognized. They want to participate in the international conversations. The phrase India's connect has been used on a number of occasions. And in every country where I go, governments and populations and businesses are more and more interested in participating imaginatively and productively with the international community. This is a wonderful thing. It's very, very reassuring, especially in these days of multiple global challenges, from climate change to the pandemic, with many other problems in between, that there seems to be a growing desire for people to connect with each other and to make whatever use they can of the connections between countries and cultures and their activities. So this is the subject that I've devoted my career to. And I'm very interested in the idea of soft power, particularly in the context of the images or reputations of nations. This is a very simple way, but a very powerful way of looking at the concept of soft power. How much do people admire certain other countries? What is it about those countries that cause them to be admired? And this is extremely important. It has very, very tangible consequences, because the countries that have powerful and positive reputations amongst publics all over the world find it much easier to prosper in the international community. They find it easier and cheaper, in fact, to attract tourists, to attract foreign investment, to attract talented people, migrants of all sorts, and to engage productively with the international community. The countries that have weak or negative images that are not thought about by many people around the world, or indeed attract negative associations with people all around the world, find it much, much harder. So to put it in, if you like, a commercial metaphor, we can say that countries with good images trade at a premium, and countries with bad images trade at a discount. And so this whole concept of where good images come from and which countries have them amongst which audiences and why is a fascinating subject, and one with very significant repercussions for governments and for the populations that they care for. So for about the first 20 years of my career, I began researching the images of countries to try to identify what was the source of this soft power, what was the reason why people admired country A more than country B. And what I eventually discovered after about 10 years of collecting data and more than 1 billion data points tracking the perceptions that ordinary people around the world have about 50 or 60 other countries, I discovered something rather surprising and something I believe potentially rather important. That the countries which people admire are not necessarily the most powerful countries. They are not necessarily the most culturally rich countries. They're not necessarily the biggest or the oldest or the cleverest or the wealthiest countries. No, the countries that people seem to admire most around the world by a wide margin are what I call the good countries. And what I mean by a good country is a country which contributes, as I said before, in a productive and imaginative way to the international community. And perhaps this is not surprising, because we live today, as I said before, in an age of gigantic shared global challenges. Climate change, migration, pandemics, war, terrorism, conflict, abuses of human rights, water scarcity, food scarcity, and so on and so forth. What the United Nations has termed the SDGs, the Strategic Development Goals, reflect that we really do live in the age of gigantic globalized crises. And the one thing that all of these crises have in common is that no single country can resolve them on its own. China cannot solve financial turmoil. America cannot solve climate change. The European Union cannot solve migration. India cannot solve the pandemic. It's very, very clear that in order for humanity to survive and prosper into the future, we need to learn how to work and collaborate together consistently and as a fundamental principle of engagement. It has been the tradition of countries in the past for them to compete. And I often say that there are basically 3 ages of humanity. The first age of the international community was for countries to engage in conflict with each other, to fight and to struggle for territory and for dominance. The second age, at which we're at the end of the second age now, is the age of competition, slightly less bloodthirsty, slightly less damaging, but in the long term still hugely problematic, where countries are trying to achieve ascendancy over each other, to be richer, to be bigger, to do better, to be more admired, in fact. And what we need to do now with some significant urgency, if we're going to tackle these challenges, is to move into the third age of human experience, which is the age of cooperation and collaboration. There needs to be a change in the fundamental culture of governance worldwide, from fundamentally competitive to fundamentally collaborative. And this is why it is so remarkable and so, I believe, important to discover that this is actually connected with the degree to which people admire other countries. One of the reasons why countries very often don't work together as much as they should, in many, many cases, is because they feel they will lose a competitive advantage if they do so. If you give up the struggle, even for a moment, you'll fall behind. If you drop even for a second the idea of America first, or France first, or India first, or Germany first, you'll begin to lag behind in the race. This is a misconception of the functioning of the human community. Actually, as the research begins to prove, the more you cooperate, the more you collaborate with other countries, with other populations, with international institutions, with important actors in the international sphere, the more competitive you become. So I launched the Good Country Index in 2014 as an attempt to start to measure how much exactly countries do contribute to the world outside their own borders. If you want to know how much a country such as India or Japan or Kenya or any other contributes to the lives and livelihoods of its own citizens looking inwards, there are many, many surveys out there that measure that. But what nobody had previously measured is what is the impact of those countries outside their borders, on the global commons, on the planet that we all share, on the environment that we all depend on. So the Good Country Index is a very, very simple first attempt to measure that. I won't spend time talking about India's results because they're freely available to anybody who's interested enough to go and look at them. The website is www.good.country, and you can go to the results of the Good Country Index, see that India in the latest edition of the Good Country Index ranks, I think, about 44th position out of 160 countries, which is a very good result. It suggests that net, India is certainly not a free rider on the international system, that it does contribute more to the international community than it takes away. However, 44th, there's still a long way that one can improve. One can still give more. And I guess the big message behind the research that I've done over the years is that by giving more, you do not achieve less or reap less. You actually achieve more. The more you cooperate, the more you collaborate within the international community, the better it serves your economy, your society, and your polity. And this surprising discovery is what I call the Good Country Equation, which is at the heart of the book that I just published last week, which explains in much more detail how it is that cooperation and collaboration are not only necessary in the future for the international community, but actually deliver tangible short-term benefits to the countries that engage in it more actively. Those are my very brief comments for now. I thank you very much for your patience in listening to them, and I look forward to taking any questions that may follow on that. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Ms. Anhol. We will get back to you soon with a few questions. I'm now pleased to introduce Mr. Jonathan Lipman. Jonathan is North America's leading practitioner of Vastu architecture, and he has had a distinguished career spanning architectural practice, historic preservation, museum curating, and academia. He is also a New York Times praised author. His architectural practice has been devoted exclusively to the practice of Maharishi Vastu architecture for the past 23 years. John is the director of maharishivastu.org, which provides consulting services in Maharishi Vastu architecture and planning. And he's a city architect for the first Vastu city in the modern era Maharishi Vedic city, Iowa, where he resides. He has given hundreds of lectures on the subject in the US, Canada, the Caribbean, Middle East, and Asia, and has collated medical and scientific research that validates the reality of the effects of this extraordinary system. We look forward to your presentation, John. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate being connected. My video is on, but are you seeing me?
No, we don't see you. We can only hear you.
Let me try to share my screen and see whether at least you can see my screen, because that's more important than seeing me. And do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Well then, let's just look at my slides. I found Simon's presentation absolutely fascinating and brilliant, and I hope that my presentation will convey one way in which India is behaving as a very good country, and as this initiative from India expands in the world, I have no doubt that its place in the Good Country Index will rise. It has been my blessing to have spent 50 years learning from Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, known worldwide for teaching transcendental meditation, which he learned from his Gurudev, His Divinity Swami Brahmananda Saraswati, Jagadguru Chankracharya Chaturma. What I've learned in my quarter century of study and practice of Vastu is that Vastu is a powerful Vedic architecture and construction technology to connect individual intelligence with cosmic intelligence, and to provide influences of good health, happiness, family harmony, success, and growth to enlightenment. Maharshi played a historic role in the early 1990s when he organized a series of prominent speaking events across India for stapatis, that is Vedic architects in ancient family lineages. These events helped to bring this precious discipline back into everyone's awareness in India, the land of the Ved. Maharshi also felt the need to enliven and consolidate the principles of Vastu that are found in so many different Vastu Shastras and lineages across India. Therefore, he went deep into the natural law aspect of Vastu Vidya, and based on his insight into the Ved and Stapatya Ved in particular, he formulated his master plan to reconstruct the world, creating heaven on earth. His goal is no less than global reconstruction to relieve the suffering of the world that is caused by the inauspicious orientation, etc., of the world's buildings and streets. And what has he accomplished to date? There have been hundreds of millions of dollars in perfect Maharshi Vastu construction in the US alone, built over the last 25 years, and much, much more around the world. We see a few examples, a small handful, a modernist house in Australia, a very traditional but new Vastu house in Spain, a complex in Japan built using traditional Japanese construction methods and style, and a traditional home in the USA. And this is another example. This is a 9-story commercial office building built in suburban Washington, DC. It is built to LEED Platinum, which is the highest standard of sustainability. And it is a beautiful building. We have also built Vastu communities in different parts of the world. This is an example of a Vastu community in England, in Suffolk, called Maharshi Vedic Village, and it will be expanding to triple its size, it looks like, in the next 2 years. Other communities are in such countries as Denmark, Thailand, New Zealand, and my own home, Maharshi Vedic City in Iowa. And outside of it is Maharshi University of Management, which has been rebuilt according to the principles of Vastu. We built 28 Vastu buildings on it. A small handful of them are shown in these photographs. And there's much more planned in planning stages in every corner of the world. What we see now is Mandala Club and Resort planned for Vero Beach, Florida. The land is owned, the financing is in place, the design has received approval from the city, and therefore construction will be beginning next year in 2021. And to summarize where Vastu exists in the world, according to the system that Maharshi has reconstructed that we call Maharshi Vastu. In this map of the world, every nation with blue on it has Maharshi Vastu buildings on them. And so most of the landmass of the world comprises countries within which we have built Vastu buildings. Those countries that are darker blue have many, many Vastu buildings on them. And the little green dots that I hope you can see are the locations of Maharshi Vastu communities or other larger facilities. To perpetuate this expansion, Maharshi institutionalized an architecture postgraduate degree at Maharshi Vedic University as a training program, followed by internships and then peer review to ensure that every project by graduates of the program would meet the highest standards. In this map, we see little red stars showing where the graduates of this program in Vastu architecture are. And as you can see, they are practicing in every continent of the world. Truly, this is an example of India's soft power. At Maharshi's direction, all Maharshi Vastu buildings worldwide are verified by an independent third party, and upon verification, receive special certification. And in this way, people will know long into the future which building is a perfect Vastu building. Now, on a related subject, Maharshi stressed to us that in this modern scientific age, we can offer the Vedic wisdom to the world by validating it through the window of science and sharing those findings widely. As many of you probably know, we've done this with great success with the Transcendental Meditation technique. So let us talk now about medical and statistical research, which has become a powerful tool for understanding Vastu as Maharshi has purified it. We have demonstrated in research that the directions that a house faces actually predicts the occupant's mental health, heart health, and prosperity. These are according to published peer-reviewed studies. We have also shown the correlation between the direction that one sleeps and one's mental health, just as your Didi told you when you were young, and all as predicted by Shastra. And we see, and in case any of you are wondering, pillow to the east is the best, pillow to the south is good, pillow to the west we avoid, and always avoid sleeping with pillow to the north. That's the cliff notes on that. And we see lower left on this slide a list of those medical journals that have published research that sheds light on the mechanisms of Vastu. And in one pilot study, not published, but fascinating, we were able to predict correctly 94% of the time how financially successful companies were simply by evaluating their building per Vastu. These are non-Vastu buildings, by evaluating them from an aerial photograph. And associates and I are now writing up research on Vastu. And contact us here, maharshivastu.org or info@maharshivastu.org, maharishivastu.org as it's spelled. And we'll share it with you. One exciting new paper is a survey of occupants of Maharshi Vastu homes worldwide. About 150 homeowners responded to the survey, and let me give you a few of the highlights. We see in the bar on the far left that about 88% of people living in Vastu report that their children are happier.
Sorry to interrupt, John. Sorry to interrupt. You have a minute more. Thank you.
Could you say that again?
Sorry, John. You have a minute more. Is that okay?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
85% of people living in Vastu have reported since they moved in, they have less stress. 90% who live in Maharshi Vastu homes say they have greater overall success since living in it. And the overall quality of life is judged by 90% of people who live in Maharshi Vastu to have improved since they lived in the house. These effects experienced by Vastu dwellers worldwide demonstrate the cosmic value of the Vedic technologies to every citizen of planet Earth. And they demonstrate that the goal of this conference is not only to display Vedic India's soft power, but its absolute importance to humanity. We are finding that the world is receptive to this message, and we look forward quickly to fulfilling Maharshi's goal of reconstructing the entire world and helping to relieve the suffering of the world and bring peace, coherence, and invincibility to the people with this technology, in addition to all the many other Vedic technologies which are discussed in other of the presentations today. And with that, Jai Gurudev, and if you would like more information, feel free to go to maharishivasthu.org or email us at info@maharishivasthu.org. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you so much, John.
My
Thank you. Our next speaker has a very tangible connection to India. He is what we call Damad of India. He is the son-in-law of India. Welcome, Greg Ellis. Recognized as one of the more innovative and versatile drummers in the world today, he has family in Bombay. He is a Hollywood musician and composer whose music is shaped by his training and exposure to Indian rhythm. He has performed around the world and recorded with musical artists from around 30 countries. His drumming can be heard in more than 150 films, television, and video game scores. As a passionate advocate for the healing and therapeutic aspects of organic sound and rhythm, he has presented lectures on the topic at various conferences and institutions. His most current album, which we had the privilege to listen to last weekend, Kaleidoscope, was produced in collaboration with Indian music composer A.B. Madhav and took shape during the lockdown. And it is a syncretic union of Indian and global sound heritage and has a deep meditative quality to it. He intends to distribute it more of as therapeutic sound rather than just music. He's working with psychologists and other music therapeutic portals in Europe to encourage the use of music for healing. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you so much, Aparna. Can you hear me all? Is the level okay?
Yes, yes.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, it's early morning here in Los Angeles, so I have the sun coming up right here, and we're in the middle of a very intense heat wave as well, but this is a good time to be doing this up on the roof of my house here. Where to start? These first two presentations were fantastic. I felt Simon really set it up lovely, and Jonathan, your work is beautiful, and the principles you include are really a beautiful example of soft power. I believe the softest of soft power is music, the arts in general, but there's music essential in terms of how it connects us together. I've been coming to India for over 25 years. I've worked with some of the most legendary and luminary artists in India, Zakir Hussain and Bikram Ghosh, Shankar Ghosh, Lakshmi Shankar, just to name a few, also some in the Bollywood world. When I first went to India, I realized there were so many preconceptions that we have in the West of India. And immediately I wanted to almost gain the secret of it instead of realizing I needed to observe it. In doing so, as a drummer, already by the time I went to India, I had my career was established. I had never really played Indian music. So I was in my early 30s when I went the first time to India, and I realized that anything I started learning of Indian music at that time would have been, I started too late. I needed another lifetime for this. So instead of becoming a student of Indian music, I immersed myself in the feeling and the sensibility of Indian music. Playing with some of the most top musicians, Hindustani classical as well as pop and Bollywood, I realized there was a language in this music that seemed to only be accessed if you learn that language. I'm a self-taught musician, so I never had a teacher kind of give me any boundaries in a sense. I didn't have a legacy or a a tradition that I needed to be responsible to over my sense of my own feeling of music. So this has been, at some level, for the most part, I would say it's an absolute benefit for me. But I do miss that sense of having a place to belong. And what India did for me was give me a sense of belonging through understanding, not through knowledge or not through literal experience. It gave me a sense of an essence of a culture that was so fully realized through its food, through its art, through its architecture, through its spirituality, that I just wanted to immerse myself in that feeling. And this is what I realized was lost in the West, not necessarily a discipline or a tradition or a legacy, but more the essence of our soul, the essence of what moves us. So music to me, collaborating with indie musicians, became something that I wanted to exhibit that perspective in. I didn't want to come to India and say I'm a very good American tabla player or I understand all the tihais. And instead of that, you would hear my accent. So I found my own language of which to communicate with Indian musicians. I do this with musicians around the world. I've performed hours and hours of concerts with some that I've never been able to speak a word with, literally. We don't speak a common language except for music. Yet on stage, we share exactly what we're feeling, and it's completely understood in the moment and then in the form of expression. And this fascinates me about music, about the language of music. I think a lot of these examples that you're going to hear today, physical examples of how soft power can influence the world from India, there's an essence that sometimes I think some Indians don't really recognize. So in doing so, I had started collaborating with many musicians, as I said. I had spent the last 2 months or the first 2 months of this year, from January to March, in India, touring and performing, and had met some musicians that I knew understood this concept of influencing through influence, in a sense. So what I bring back to India when I come back and I perform is not, again, to show you what I've done literally by translating this language, but I bring back an example of the influence that this culture has. And in music in the West, a lot of people think that India started with the Beatles coming to India in the 60s, and they then comment on some sitar in the music and some other aspects of Indian music. A lot of musicians and artists here over the years have used samples of Indian musicians. What happened with the Beatles, though, when they came to India was not so much a literal influence of the music, but more understanding this aspect of culture, that culture needed to be broadened in the West. Our eyes needed to be open. So many traditions in India have this idea embedded in the practice. The music that I share is coming much more from a place of wanting to show how that influence can then materialize into something new. It doesn't capitalize on it. It doesn't appropriate the culture. It embraces it so deeply, with such a deep form of respect, that what you hear and what you see then becomes something new. And I think a lot of collaborations from East and West is a mashup of Western style with Eastern style, instead of trying to create something that really starts from nothing and let it grow from there. So I'm going to share a minute of music here from the album that Aparna had just commented on, called Kaleidoscope. This is with singer A.B. Madhav, who's a wonderful Hindustani classical singer in Mumbai. I had recorded these tracks during lockdown more as my own sense of therapy. I needed to make peace with my studio and not being able to perform live. And so I started writing this music that just had a very therapeutic sense on me first. I shared it with A.B. Madhav. He was so moved by it, he started singing on it and sent me then the files of his vocals, and we then created this album. What I want you to pay attention to is, although he's singing in a raga, the music itself is not supporting from the place of a Hindustani classical musician. There's no tambura, there's no tabla. So the essence of the raga then becomes something that isn't a learned aspect of music. It becomes something you just feel immediately. the essence of my music then also has that same sense where you can't categorize it, you can't call it this type of music or that type, but instead it embeds these concepts in such a way that this is what happens, excuse me, this is what happens when two musicians are really coming together in the essence of music and bringing the legacy of their life and their culture and their own influences and allowing it to just roam free in the sound. So I'm going to play a minute of this. So there's a minute of that. I hope you could hear that. Sorry, I didn't have my my screen on until the end, but I hope you could hear some of that. So as you see, the aspect of the influence of the raga.
Sorry, we didn't hear the music.
You didn't hear?
No.
Let me see one more time. Do you see my screen is sharing?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Let me try one more time here. Can you hear that?
No.
Maybe you should stop sharing your screen and play it.
Just play the audio.
I can play it over my speakers, see if you can. Oh, I'm so sorry that's not able to be heard.
No, we can hear it.
So you were able to hear that?
Yes, yes, Greg.
It was very
Okay. So it's a taste of it. It's what I think is real key here is that when I've had listening sessions and played this music for Indian musicians and an Indian audience, they recognize the aspect of the raga. They recognize there's a sensibility there that's still intact coming from their culture. What happens when I play it for friends of mine and colleagues and sessions here in the West, all they hear is beautiful vocals. They don't have to know what raga that is, that it's meant to be listened to at early morning, that it's these ideas that come from a learned place of understanding the art and the culture. And the response I get is fascinating because it's exactly the same from both cultures. So you have a culture on my side listening to this music without any reference of where it comes from, and they just hear beautiful music. You listen to it with an Indian audience, and the Indian audience will then recognize the aspect of the raga in there, and then have their own reference points of how that has now been, if you will, deconstructed in a way, but now the essence comes through. You hear the notes of the raga differently. My point, and I think a way to start wrapping up, is I'll share a story with the wonderful tabla player Bikram Ghosh from Calcutta, who I've worked with for over 25 years. And his father, Pandit Shankar Ghosh, who passed away a few years ago, he was a dear friend of mine, and I became very close with him over the years when I would travel. And I remember I was going through this struggle 20 years ago of thinking, I'm playing with so many Indian musicians, maybe I should really start learning the music and start trying to learn at least some phonetics of this language that I could communicate literally. And at that time I was, well into my 40s, and Shankar Ghosh had mentioned to me, and for those who don't know, Pandit Shankar Ghosh is one of the preeminent tabla players from India on the level of Ustad Ala Raka and the best. He shared with me a beautiful idea saying, never forget where you come from. He knew I started out playing drum set and playing rock and roll drum set and having very deep sense of groove and rhythm from a different sensibility than music in Hindustani classical music. But his words of never forget where you came from have always stayed with me, because there's an aspect I think that each one of us brings, not of our culture and not of our legacy and not of what we've learned and memorized and performed and exhibited, but really of ourselves. We each have a unique individual life, yet you could categorize our influences and our experiences into very small subsets, I think. Pain and joy and happiness and realization and these ideas. So in that aspect, I never felt like I needed to identify myself any longer as this type of musician or that type of musician. And when I came to India, it freed me up so much more because I didn't have this sense of feeling I was lesser than because I didn't understand this language. I could share a dialect of a language that I knew was understood around the world, and then we could speak through that dialect of rhythm and music. And I think that's ultimately the goal of soft power, is not to have a sense of dominance or a sense of an umbrella over an idea of culture, but more of recognizing our own individuality and our own sense of purpose in this life that comes from a legitimacy of just being born. And in that sense, I feel that India has an enormous head start, if you will, in being able to influence through soft power around this world, and understanding there's an essence that comes from this culture that exists nowhere else, as every other culture also has that essence. And it's finding not necessarily a common ground of understanding, but a respect and an understanding of those influences coming from a place of purity and truth and honesty and authenticity, and then exhibited through the influences of different cultures. So with that, I think I could probably start wrapping up here. I'm not sure how much time I have left, but I just thank you all for this opportunity, and I look forward to the rest of your presentations and hope that this fills in a little piece of this puzzle that we're all trying to put together here, of connecting in a world that is demanding understanding and respect more than ever. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Greg. We now take this conversation about languages and communication to a language which is very, very old. And we have with us Mr. Rutger Kortenhorst, who works and teaches the children. At the age of 20, he was looking for some spiritual direction when his journey in Sanskrit started. He went to the School of Philosophy, a worldwide organization which teaches Advaita Vedanta. At this time, he got interested in Vedic mathematics. To learn it, he had to read the sutras, which were in Sanskrit. So mathematics got him started on Sanskrit, and very quickly he learned the Devanagari script. He joined the grammar group, or the Vyakarna, at the School of Philosophy. He is currently the Sanskrit tutor at John Scottish School, currently the only school in Ireland teaching Sanskrit. A few years back, he resigned as vice principal of the school and decided to take a sabbatical to learn Sanskrit in India for a year. And after that, he concentrated on running their Sanskrit program and teaching it to students and designing the curriculum. He's now working on translating the Bhagavad Gita and making a color-coded version online. Looking forward to your talk.
Thank you, Aparna, Bhagini. Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. Okay. I think it'd be nice to show how our school operates by a little clip that I'm going to show you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share the screen with you now. And I'll start here. Now, how are we doing? Go back a bit. You can see this, can't you? I'll make it a bit larger. How's that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we often make musical YouTube clips, and there is one about to start now. And just start again. And if you don't hear the sound, would you let me know? No, I don't seem to. It's not even starting. There are some technical problems. I just check. One moment. Oh, yes. Yeah. No. No luck. Just a black screen.
Should I play it? If you sent me the link, sir. Should I try playing?
Okay, okay. I'll carry on. We have heard a lot of talk and a lot of conversation, so it might be nice to come to rest with a yoga practice in Sanskrit. So this is what we do in every class with our students. We say in Sanskrit, Upashanto Bhava. So just to come to rest. Paramatmane Nivedanam Kuru. Riju Upavisha. Sitting up straight. I think everybody would benefit from doing this now. Dvene Treni Milaya. Dvaukarana Udghataya. So listening. Dvaupada Upashamaya. Dvauhasta Upashamaya. Sampurnam Shariram Anubhava. Feel the whole body. Sarvan Shabdan Shrinu. Listen to the most distant sounds. Swatmanam Nivedaya. Om Paramatmane Namaha. Atha. So this is how we start our classes in school and how we finish them with the same way and then just iti at the end. I'll just chant this for you, one of the traditional Shanti mantras from the Taittiriya Upanishad. Om Shanno Mitra Shamvarunaha Shanno Bhavatvar Yama Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tadvaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So it all began in around 1965, before I joined this organization, that the leader of the School of Philosophy called Mr. McLaren found a teacher, Sri Shantananda Saraswati, Shankaracharya from North India, and who gave the School of Philosophy advice ever since. When they both died in the 90s, they were both had successors, and so the school is still thriving. The parents of this is an adult school of education, so the parents of these children asked, could we have our children hear this philosophy before we are so old and when we have made so many mistakes? So we started a day school in the same building, and this is John Scottish School. So it came from that philosophy school organization. You can see in the bottom left, that's the philosophy school building, and this is also where the children, 200 children, have to fit into that quite small building, and they're all learning Sanskrit as part of their timetable. They also learn Irish and English and mathematics and geography and history and all the ordinary subjects. But what they do is they come to rest each class like we just did, and that's how we operate. And then, so it's all based on the teachings from the wisdom of the East. The top building there we recently acquired, it's for older children. And there's also a private primary school where I teach a little bit of Sanskrit to small children. The other children there are learning well-being, because there's a real need for it, based on Ayurveda and on Yoga Sutras. So we're using, the Department of Education in our country recognizes our course, because there is a lot of self-harming going on in teenagers and at this time. And so what we really need to do is help children, help young people to concentrate on well-being rather than harming themselves. So there are other schools around the world that are based on this. St. James's School in London is basically where it all started. And then we've been, since 1986, we started. And you can see Johannesburg, Melbourne, Sydney, Trinidad, and Wellington also have schools for children. Narendra Modi came to Ireland 5 years ago. And he was only on a flying visit, and we were the only school who could perform for him. And so this would have been a clip where you could hear some children chanting, but at the moment it doesn't seem to work. So, but you're getting the idea. That's, you know, we're very lucky to do this, and it was a big build-up for the children to perform for the Prime Minister of India, and it was an honor. And we certainly took our Sanskrit to the next level. So what I do each year when I go to India for 3 months, we're very lucky in Ireland. Teachers have 3 months holidays, so you can really teach yourself a lot at that time, learn a lot at that time. So I started in the Aksharam in Sanskrit Bharati in Bangalore. And then they put me on to the Gurukula in Veda Vijnana Gurukula near Bangalore. And Ramachandra Bhatt Acharya, he was the headmaster there. Also the vice, I think he was in charge of Vyasa in some huge capacity as well. So I recognized Dr. Nagendra. And so I've been learning Vedic chanting and Sanskrit and so on since that time in Veda Vijnana Gurukula. But they were not able to teach me maybe how to teach children. So I go to Pondicherry for that. So my method, the method for teaching children comes from a teacher there called Dr. Narendra, and it's mostly based on singing. so this is, we sing grammar songs, we sing, they're all designed so that you learn easily. And so that's what we're doing now. And we are also bringing our students to India for a fortnight if they want to, and they can stay in a Gurukula and experience this way of life, which is based on it Sanskrit is not really, is it? It's a way of life, and that's what we are really discovering when we're there. So since the COVID era, we've had to do a lot of this stuff online. So I thought it would go more smoothly. Unfortunately, the sound isn't working. So we have we bring the Sanskrit language into this modern era. So like the Mission Impossible music, and so to start a project which they had to send us by email. And I'm not the only teacher there. There are 4 other teachers on our team, because 200 children, and they have Sanskrit almost every day, so that requires quite a lot.
अयं घोटकः धावति शीघ्रम् इमं घोटकं पश्यत यूयम् अयं घोटकः धावति शीघ्रम् इमं घोटकं पश्यत यूयम् घोटकेन सह अहं चलामि घोटकेन सह अहं चलामि घोटकाय इह कोमलघास घोटकाय इह कोमलघास पतति घोटकात् अश्वारोही पतति घोटकात् अश्वारोही घोटकस्य अति सुन्दर चाल घोटकस्य अति सुन्दर चाल अहं घोटके उपविष्टोऽस्मि अहं घोटके उपविष्टोऽस्मि घोटक घोटक चल चल शीघ्रं घोटक घोटक चल चल शीघ्रं घोटक घोटक चल चल शीघ्रं घोटक घोटक चल चल शीघ्रं.
So this is a grammar song which the children are very fond of singing and acting out. So we're not just sitting in our chairs, we're dancing through the class and learning these songs with actions. So you can see there are 7 cases in the Sanskrit language, and each case is represented by a sentence about a horse. And you can replace the horse by a donkey or an elephant, and you can sing the same song. And they get used to putting the correct endings onto the in the correct form in the sentence, because Sanskrit is quite a technical language and it's very beautiful, but it takes a little bit of ingenuity to pass it on to young children and have fun at the same time. So these are the sort of the artistic work students have been doing in the COVID times, where they have made pictures or have found pictures and decorated famous mantras that we're chanting, like Asatoma Sadgamaya. Everybody knows about this from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And so there they have depicted Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, from darkness lead me to light. Oh, it's working now, good. So there are also simple fun songs about, and they learn it first Then they would translate that song into English by looking it up in the dictionary. And obviously we will teach them the stories from the Mahabharata, some of them in English, and also obviously shlokas, famous shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita. And we would tell them who are the famous people who have read this, who are inspired by this great, amazing philosophical work called the Bhagavad Gita. People like Emerson and Aldous Huxley, and a lady who is still traveling around the globe in a rocket, Sunita Williams. That's her favorite book. So you can imagine that inspires them to want to know what is in that, text. And when they hear they should speak the truth That doesn't really mean that much until you explain what does it mean to speak the truth? Speech which does not hurt, which is truthful, pleasant, beneficial. And we need to practice self-reflection. That is really what constitutes the discipline of speech. So telling children just speak the truth is maybe not enough. We need to explain what that means. So here, for example, we have Paropakaraya phalanti vrikshaha Paropakaraya vahanti nadyah Paropakaraya duhanti gava Paropakarartham idam shariram. So very beautiful ancient wisdom from the Subhashita. And this is, again, just a song they love singing. And the meaning, of course, is very, very beautiful and eco-friendly. Because for the benefit of others, trees give fruit. And for the benefit of others, the rivers flow. And for the benefit of others, the cows give milk. So this body is for the benefit of others, for the service of all. So there's a website for the students where they can find the songs. It's www.sanskrit.ie. They can find all the songs we sing in class, and they sing them at home, and they want to tell their parents about this. And they often say Sanskrit is the best language. And because they love doing what they're doing. It connects them with some spiritual roots that are obviously in every one of us, but for children, they're much more available. And so it brings that out very quickly, and you can see their happiness. The website also gives direction to the well-being for the first and second year students in the secondary school. So they would be 7th and 8th standards unto 9th standards. And they do an interview exam on this, and they practice lots and lots of useful things to build up their good habits and to ignore their bad habits. And then at the moment, because of COVID, the lockdown, I couldn't go to India. So I thought, how can I spend the whole summer without India? So I'll have to bring India to my home. So I started translating the Bhagavad Gita from cover to cover. And you may know Gaia or Gabriela Bernal, who is a beautiful Sanskrit singer. And she is singing every verse, and it will be available by the end of November on the same website. So everyone will be able to hear the beautiful, the Sanskrit text being sung, and you can read it and follow it, because it's color-coded in such a way that you can see each word and compare it in the Devanagari, in the transliteration, and in the English. So I'll stop sharing now. That's basically what I'd like to tell you. Maybe there's some questions, but later on, I think.
Yes, we'll come back to it later.
All right. Okay. I don't know how we did for time.
I think we've finished 10. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Lovely.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this, which is the love of my life, really.
Wonderful. And I think a lot of Indian children will use your resources.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was indeed a very enlightening session on how Sanskrit is being taken to Ireland. We have our next speaker for the day, Lakshmi Mohan Babu. Lakshmi is a Singaporean-based artist, architect, a jewelry and a fashion designer trained from NIFT Delhi and LaSalle College of Arts, Singapore. She has illustrated books for the Voluntary Health Association of India and the WHO in the area of disability. She now devotes her time to being an artist of many mediums. Her art has been featured as a mosaic animation on the largest HD screen in the world at Singapore's Suntec City. Much recently, her work was selected to have a permanent residence on the moon by 2022. It has also been featured in prominent galleries, and many now many may view it at Singapore's iconic Raffles Hotel. Her approach to art is to translate her ideas into all facets of design and span a multitude of disciplines, that which may be viewed as wearable, livable, and usable, such as a painting, clothing, jewelry, living spaces, sculpture, furniture, crockery, etc. And that is how she makes art a truly immersive experience. Over to you, Lakshmi.
Well, thank you so much, Arunimel, and thank you so much for inviting me today. It's been really wonderful hearing from everyone today, and I hope that I can share some of my work as well. Being about global connections, I'll talk a little bit about my art and also the cube that's being sent to the moon in 2022. It all started with, it's really about my own upbringing that's kind of influenced my art, something like what Greg had to say earlier. It's all about global connections and also looking for meaning in art all over the world. So I do belong to India, but I grew up in Afghanistan and I now live in Singapore. And when it comes to my art, I like to look for inspiration all over the world. Of course, a lot of my art is deeply rooted in Indian philosophy. And the cube is based on the mandala, which is a very Indian concept. But when I was studying the mandala, I realized that it's something that belongs to the whole globe, literally. It's something that connects the globe on many levels. I'll share my presentation with you, so I'll kind of explain to you how I connect different parts of the globe in my art. Can you see my screen?
Now we can.
Okay, great. So basically, when I looked at the mandala, I was thinking that it's the idea of you and the universe, and that's something that's common to every individual in the world. I mean, every person understands the concept of me and the rest of my surroundings, me and my environment, me and my family, me and my friends. So it's all about interconnection, being interconnected, interrelated, and also interdependent. And this is a concept, even though in India, you see the mandala as with a certain form, the Sri Yantra mandala. It's something I realized had common, like parallels with a number of other cultures. So when I looked at the Sri Yantra, it's, you see a number of ideas within it. And I wanted my art to be something that was really simple and easy to understand. And it was, not something that was overly intellectual or something that no one, you look at it and you feel like, oh my God, I can't understand it. But I also wanted it to incorporate all these different ideas from different cultures and, blend all of that into a single sort of language of symbols. So I started with looking at the Sri Yantra and I said, well, it's got all the, the basic shapes that we need for building absolutely anything. So when you look at it, it's got triangles, it's got circles, it's got squares. So it's all the most basic shapes, and those are shapes that absolutely anyone from any culture would use to create, any kind of form or space around them. And so when I looked at it, of course, the other aspect is also that it's got a concentric structure. It's really about you and the universe. It's about the inner essence interacting with the rest of the world and the rest of the universe. And so then I started looking at other symbols from other parts of the world. And I found that they had very similar meanings, but maybe a little different interpretation. So like in the Sri Yantra, you have a series of triangles. So one set represents the female and the other set represents the male. And it also is a symbol of creation. And the symbol of creation is something that's obviously common to absolutely every one of us. It's about birth, life and death, creation, preservation, and destruction. So you have this cycle, and the cycle keeps repeating and repeating. So it goes on to infinity. So what I did was I used this idea of the Sri Yantra and picked up basic polygons because that's common to absolutely every culture. And then I also started looking for parallels like the yin and the yang. And I found that the yin and the yang has also got the same idea of duality of male and female. But what was interesting about the yin and the yang was that it has a waveform. And the waveform really is the medium of communication for absolutely every form of energy. So be it sound, be it light, heat. I mean, you need waves to transmit that. And the beauty about the wave is that you have a crest and a trough. And if you have one of them ceases to exist, you get a straight line, which means that you cannot have, it ceases to exist. And that's really about the idea of the interdependence of male and female. So in my art, I didn't want to use a literal interpretation of the yin and the yang. So what I did was I created these paintings. As you can see, every single painting is made with a single line, and the line comes back and joins up from where it started. So it kind of suggests, continuing life cycles and infinity. And each painting has only a single side, the positive side, and the positive side actually defines the negative side. So this is actually the form of the cube that's going to go to the moon in 2022. So it shows you that it's created with a single line. It's got only one shape, but within it, it has a number of shapes that has a whole lot of ideas within it. So for one, I said, well, it has the idea of singularity. So it's like crosshairs on a mouse. So it's the idea of singularity. And then you have triangles, like arrows really represent triangles, which is the most basic polygon. Also the Trinity. And then the whole shape is within a square. So that's the 4 directions. And also it's radial in form. So it's about plurality. So I kind of used the idea of numbers within my art. So even though it started out with what was essentially an Indian philosophy, I realized it had a kind of global sort of appeal to it. It's like a global language of symbols. Just move on to. So what I also did was I used the color wheel because I thought the color wheel kind of best represented the idea of interactions. Because the world we live in today is all about interactions, interdependence, interconnected thought and idea. So what was interesting about the color wheel also is that it's based on a triangle. So you have the triad, so you have primaries, and then you rotate the triangle and you get a whole range of different colors of, it's infinite number of colors. So these were kind of the symbols that I used to create my art. And this is what's been incorporated in my work. So what I did was I created paintings using the idea of the triangle. And so you have only 2 sides where, at every set of paintings had an interaction of arrows where it showed direction in different types of direction, different types of movement really. So in this set of paintings, you see that it's got arrows that are positive, that are going in one direction, and then the negative arrows that are created by move in the opposite direction. And when you look at triangles, the beauty about triangles, it's something something that mathematicians love. It's something that builders love, and it's the basic building block for absolutely any shape. So it's a form that whether you're Indian or you are from the Western world or you're from the Southern Hemisphere, it's a shape that you can relate to. So I then went on to the secondary colors, and this is the shape that I've used in my moon cube, where it's based on the circle, and the circle really is about all kinds of movement. It's also the shape of all the planets and the moon, rose windows where there's gears, which suggest a change of direction, the wheel, time. So this was about the circle, and the beauty about this shape is that it looks like a flower. So you have 12 arrows that go outwards, and you have 12 arrows that are defined by the 12 outward arrows that come inwards. So it's kind of like a radial sort of shape. So then I move on to the tertiary set of colors. And here what you see is that it's the shape of a windmill. And the windmill really is, it's what helps you harness energy. And the windmill is a form that you see again in every culture. So whether it's in Africa or if it's in the Americas, or it's in India or in Europe, you see some form of the windmill that's used in their symbols. So what I found interesting was when I talked to different people about my work, they all say it kind of connects back to their own culture, and they're able to kind of relate to it as their own. So they don't really see it as something that's definitely from one particular region, because you will find some elements there that you know belongs to your own culture. So this is another set of symbols that I've got, and it's based on the Dromenon. So the Dromenon, again, is something that's very European, but then you'll find that you have the Chakravyuha in India, or you have the Hopi Indian, the labyrinth, or you have, and for that matter, you even have a London Underground that is a labyrinth form. But it's kind of like a solution. Like even though it's a maze, it actually gives you a certain direction, and it also leads you out into to where you want to go. So whether it could be a printed circuit board, it's also something that connects you. So this is really about the interaction series of paintings, which inspired me to create the interaction cube, which is going to the moon. And so the last series that I had in this painting series was called the Nautiluses. And the Nautiluses are based on the spirals. So of course I have the triangle, I have the square, I have the circle. And lastly, I have the spiral. And the spiral, of course, is of course a really fascinating symbol in the sense that you'll find that you see it a lot in nature, in how nature, especially in petals and flowers, you'll always find that it follows a sort of Fibonacci sequence. Or if you see the Nautilus, it's got a kind of logarithmic spiral, the spiral of a galaxy, a DNA, the unfurling of a leaf. So you find that the spiral shape is something that defines us, because our DNA defines us, and it also defines the shape of our surroundings, our galaxy that we live in. So how I dealt with the spiral was that I kind of, again, had just a single shape that went around, which defined the shape of the non-existent space. So it's really about the negative and positive sides influencing each other. So while I was doing these paintings, while I was painting them, I thought to myself, I wanted to be easily understood, and therefore I should have line animations to explain that, each painting is made of a single line, and it always comes back to the same point and starts up again to create a new cycle. So it got picked up by the Suntech design team, and they created a mosaic animation in Singapore. And I'll play that for you. Oops, it's not playing. Okay, I think it's not playing. So actually this was a mosaic animation, and you can see all of them created with a series of lines that come back to the same point. And so these are the cubes that I've created at the moment. I'm still working on the prototypes, and I hope to finish it by the end of this year. Okay, I think I've got it, yeah.
Yeah, if you could just wind up in a minute or two. Thanks so much.
Okay. Okay, I think I'll get back to playing that, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that kind of, any questions, please let me know if you have any questions about that. And for more information about my work, you can always have a look at my website.
Today I'm doing a video just for you guys. This is gonna be a response video to answer all of the questions I've been getting on our channel about drywall and repairs and home maintenance. And I have a simple message to tell you. Don't worry.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful looking at your work and also understanding the story behind it. I think art appreciation always becomes better once you know the thought process that went into it. With that, I'd like to thank all the speakers and hand over to Hariji to give his insights as we come to a close of this Namaste 2020.
Thank you.
Hariji, all yours.
Thank you very much, Arnima, and just wanted to thank all the panelists, and I saw quite a few things, and I don't know, we just have another 15 minutes, so I'm not sure whether we have enough time for Q&A, but several discussions, Simon especially, I think probably we should have a separate discussion itself with Simon. More importantly, because just in terms of, I was just going through his classification of the Good Country Index, and and on culture specifically, India, he's ranked. I mean, the rank has come out as 55 based on that criteria, and that's something which we'd like to have a discussion. Even on the soft power index, we are about 38 or so. At CSP, our goal is to be in the top 3 by 2030. That's what we're working for. And our entire endeavor is to be there in the top 3. And it's a very interesting, thing. So normally you want to work for, you want to work for a goal which is personal. Like I want to become an Olympic champion, or I want to become something, and that's a personal goal. But here at the Center for Soft Power, we have a goal for the country. And therefore, working for something which is not in your control directly, and trying to achieve that through various programs and various initiatives. And how do we achieve that? And actually, when I'll just share my screen, when we set out our center in is my screen visible?
Yes.
The presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Just one slide. Just wanted to, as we conclude, I just wanted to share how this journey has started. It started in December of 2017 when there was a presentation that was made on soft power in a conference in Goa. And subsequently, the Center for Soft Power was launched in June 2018. And some of the points that we really discussed at that presentation are mentioned below. And I'm just giving that just to give a framework as to how what were the goals and what we have achieved and where we are today, 2 years down the road, and 2018, 2019, and 2.5 years down the road, where we have and what we have actually achieved. So we actually launched a Center for Soft Power in June 2018, and this center was actually jointly launched in collaboration with the India Foundation. I'm grateful to Ram Madhavji to actually who was agreed, and we launched this as a joint center. And then we conceptualized and curated, and it was organized by India Foundation, but the conference itself was conceptualized by us, and it was co-curated with them. And the conference, the first time there was a conference on soft power. This was the very first time. And it's important to understand the trajectory of India's efforts in this space. And therefore, this is a very important milestone, so to speak. Since then, we had multiple events on our own and in collaboration with India Foundation. Multiple events we have done in 2019. But one significant marker is that we have launched a digital platform called softpowermac.com. And this was launched last April, May. And in a very short span of time, we've been able to reach out to a number of Indophiles, number of people who are consuming our culture, number of people who are practicing our culture, who are collectors of our culture, who believe in our culture. And we have reached out, we have engaged with them, we have done interviews. And so it's been a fantastic ride. All this under the stewardship of Vijayalakshmi Vijayakumar, and the director and the editor for the magazine itself is Aparna, and some of you must have interacted with her. Then we had two more milestones, which are very, very important milestones, is that last year and this year, we made two movies on and celebrating yoga, and two phenomenal movies, and both of them have reached a million mark, and in a very short span of time. And this again, we are going to continue. In fact, for this Soft Power Festival itself, we wanted to make a movie, but we could not because of COVID. But we would be doing a series of movies, and that's another important initiative that we are taking. Then this festival, a festival for Indophiles, was talked about in the same conference in 2017. And today I'm immensely happy that this Soft Power Festival for Soft Power, this for Indophiles, Namaste 2020 was done. And this again is something extraordinary. I'll just tell you some statistics just to get you to a sense of what is that the Center for Soft Power has achieved. We had 147 speakers, 11 ambassadors, high commissioners, and heads of ICCR, 30 plus sessions, 35 foreign speakers, non-Indian speakers out of the 147, and from across the globe. And we had several spiritual speakers also. So this is the kind of reach that this particular festival has had. And then we had talked about a NASCOM kind of a organization called Network of Indian Cultural Enterprises. This was, we talked about this in 2017. And today I'm very happy to inform you that this company has been incorporated. We're working on it. But more importantly, we have a co-founder who has joined us, Mr. Sanjay Anantharam. And we have incubated this. We have we have given a grant of 1 crore rupees for this company. And now it's going to be hived off as a separate company. And this company is a very unique company because it is a combination of Thai meets Kairetsu, an angel network that meets NASCOM. So it's a combination for cultural enterprises. And you will see that this is ultimately going to transform the economic aspects of our culture. And we talked about the angel network and a soft power fund. And these two will again be led by NICE. And we will see a global network of investors who will be investing in these small boutique companies. Now, what is left for us? These are the last three aspects are still left for us as an agenda. One, we're talking about the business plan We need to have a business plan. If we want to become a soft superpower by 2030, we need to have a clear, articulated plan. We are already talking to a few consulting companies to see how we can do a cultural mapping, constituency wise. Every constituency, every MP's constituency, we can have a cultural mapping. What are the strengths in that constituency? It could be craft, it could be any aspect of our culture. And once we have that, we also map the global demand on the top 50 cities in the world as to suburb-wise, how many yoga studios are there, how many restaurants are there, how many craft stores are there. We can have a dashboard of what is the consumption of a culture. So this is something which is a research-intensive aspect. We are working on this. And the other two aspects are advocacy related. One is that we need to have, our government has a concept of mudra, which is encouraging small enterprises. We need to think about Indians outside of India also and encourage them, because all the cultural enterprises are small in number, are small and boutique, and therefore we need to treat them as our own. And we need to have some kind of a mudra global, wherein we are able to finance these cultural enterprises around the world. If it's a restaurant in Palo Alto, if it's a craft shop in Cape Town, whatever be the business, we need to see that we need to reach out and finance them. And lastly, this is a dream that we need to create a smart city where all the crafts craftsmen from all over India send some families, and we create a city which has the economies of scale, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's in design, whether it's in customer access. It can be near a port, so people can come and have a complete exposure to our crafts. And then today Bali is booming because it's a combination of several things. But ultimately the art, craft, and design of Bali speaks because they have been able to constantly contemporize. And that's what we need to do. So these are the two things which are in the advocacy side, which is not in our hands, but all the other aspects we are constantly trying to do. And we have a fantastic team, Vijay Vijay Kumar, and Aparna, Varsha, Arunima, Hema, all of them are doing a phenomenal job, and they have given us a fantastic conference. So I'm very, very grateful. And lastly, I would like to thank our partners. ICCR, Vinayji has come and he spoke and outlined about Indian soft power. So I'm grateful to him and for the partnership. The kind of cooperation that we have been receiving from this government, from all the embassies, all the ambassadors is extraordinary. So I would like to thank all of all the partners, SVASA also, and all the speakers for today. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful ride over the last 4 weekends. Thank you very much, Akka. I hand it over to you.
Namaskar, Sri Vinay Sahasrabudheji, are you there?
Yes, I am very much there.
So thank you very much, and we look forward to the ICCR support, continuing support, sir.
Yes, you can definitely count on. We should be meeting sometime for a longer conversation where we can find out what are the areas wherein we can further collaborate and take this particular stream of thought ahead.
Yes, sir. We will definitely reach out to you for that, sir. And I must say that, yes, sir.
No, I said thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It has been a wonderful 1 month. And of course, the preparation started much before that. And I must say that I have this most wonderful team. Can you all come on screen, please? Ladies? Everybody? Yes, Koti ji and Srinivas ji also. I must say that this team has really worked very, very, very hard. And, you know, literally the clock and the watch had been thrown out. You know, it didn't matter what time it was, when it was, morning, afternoon, night, anytime, you know, people were connecting and, you know, making, and it has been a wonderful journey. And I must say that we could never have done it without all of them. I mean, we can get ideas and money can come, but without the commitment and help of this team, I doubt we could have ever done this. And they're already telling me that I should take it off for a few weeks, but that's not going to happen. On the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of October, we are going to be celebrating the World Wildlife Week. We are going to bring together ancient wisdom from across the globe. And we are already in conversation with some of the ambassadors and some of the others to be helping us out, getting us contacts, because somewhere this has become a very man-centered world, by man, human being-centered world. And I think we have forgotten that animals can exist without us, trees can exist without us, but we can't without them. So I think that's something that we really have to think about. So that will be the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of October when we do this conference. I will look forward to all of you joining us. And I have to say one thing, that this just happened. It's like when we were listening to this talk on Raga and Rasa, and one of the musicians was talking about all three of them were talking about their gurus, and they said that somebody asked them, so how do you play this music? And they said, it just happens. And if somebody asks any of us how we work this, I don't think we have an answer. All we can say is, our mother, this country, made this happen. So thank you all. And when I say people of this country, I mean everybody who has ever engaged with anything from this culture. And thank you all. And I bow my head to my mother, my country. It always brings to mind Janani Janma Bhumischa Swargadapi Gariyasi, what Lord Rama said. Somewhere we have to come back to that, and that is what has taken us forward. And I hope our country will be, and our civilizational thought will be the top and not 30 or 40 on that list. Namaskar and thank you, and Shubharatri to the ones in India. Good morning to the rest, and
Varsha, this shares.
Thank you very much, Akka. Fantastic. Hip hip hooray.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
thank you all.